Hola everybody, and welcome to my first weekly tasting about the wines of Spain. With over 3,000 years of history, 600 indigenous grapes, and the most land planted to grapevines in the world, Spain has so much to offer the wine lover. Now obviously we can't cover it all here in this one video, so for this one I'm going to focus on a few basics. With these 4 wines, we're going to get a quick tasting tour of northern Spain. So Spain is Europe's 3rd largest country, and because of its location on the Iberian Peninsula, it's long been a hotbed of activity. At the crossroads of Europe, Northern Africa, the Middle East, and eventually the Americas. To this day, Spain sees itself as several smaller empires, often only divided by geographical features. Grapes have been on the peninsula since before man existed. The Phoenicians cultivated it as far back as 1100 BC. And by the era of the Roman Empire, grapes and wine thrived, invaded by the barbaric Visigoths, who were then conquered by the Moors, who were eventually vanquished by the Christians. Throughout history, it seems like everybody's been here and everybody's wanted a piece of Spain. By the mid-1800s, Spanish wine was in crisis. Pests and disease in the vineyard, political turmoil, and an overall lack of quality in winemaking hurt Spain's progress. In the 20th century, civil war erupted and Spain was splintered. The wine industry was nationalized and large co-ops were formed that produced mediocre mass-produced wine. It wasn't until the formation of the European Union in the 1980s that Spain was able to recover and get the financial and political support it needed to boost its wine industry. So even with all of that history, the Spanish wine that we drink today is relatively young. The climate of Spain is equally diverse. Hot and arid in the south and to the center, Mediterranean to the east, and in the far north, cool and rainy. Our wines come from 3 distinct regions located in the more temperate north. In the wine world, elevation is really important. The higher the elevation, the cooler the climate. The cooler the climate, the more fresh and clean the wines. This is how an otherwise hot country like Spain can make wines like this. And you can bet they're every bit as diverse as Spain itself. So let's taste them. Likely the most famous region of Spain, Rioja, is named after the local Rio Oja, which is a tributary of the river Ebro. They've been making wine here since the 1500s, when monasteries were set up to serve pilgrims on the road to Santiago de Compostela. Rioja is most famous for its red wines, which we'll taste later, but Nivarius is unique because it makes only white wines. The name comes from the word neve, which means snow. The vineyards are located in the foothills of the Sierra Camaros Mountains and irrigated by wells of snow that remain on the mountains year-round. And Rioja is one of the only 2 highest quality designations in Spain. And this wine is made with 2 very unique Spanish grapes, 70% Viura and 30% Maturana Blanca. This wine is a 2016 vintage, so it's a little older for a white wine, and for that reason I'm getting some oxidized characters on there, some nuttiness and also baked apples. This wine sees some yeast aging, and for that reason there's a breadiness to it. There's also a Meyer lemon thickness, almost like a viscosity that comes out. And now that we know what this wine tastes like, let's talk about a food pairing that we get from our chef Tori Sellin. Fresh and acidic, but also savory, this wine is going to pair well with something like a harissa spiced deviled egg. You get that savory kind of texture coming from the eggs, you have some green olives in there, and also a little heat from the harissa spice. Rueda is another region that benefits from the cooling effects of elevation. Rueda is known exclusively for its white wines. The main grape here is called Verdejo, and it's named after its green skins. This wine comes from a single vineyard that was planted in 1885. The vines are so old that they only produce 1 ton per acre, and that's compared to 6 in other parts of the world. This is true old school Verdejo the way it used to be. Give it a swirl to intensify those aromas and give it a sniff. There's a creaminess here that comes from 10 months of yeast aging, and there's a strong tropical fruit element. That's bright and lemony. There's a little bit of a tannic grip on there, almost a greenness, and a really dominant character of honey. We're partnering this wine up with a gluten-free crab cake, and what's going to bind it all together is the aioli, because it has lemon, caper, and mustard in it. Nice and bright, going to bond with the acids in this wine. So let's move on to the reds. Priorat is located inland of the Mediterranean coast and is a part of Catalonia. The area was named after a Carthusian priory in the 12th century. These days the region is very progressive and makes some of Spain's most modern and expensive wines. Along with Rioja, it's Spain's only other DOCA region. This is one of many European wineries that's moving towards organically produced vegan wines. It's fairly high in acid for a red wine, and that probably comes from the cooler temperatures at night in Priorat. There's this burst of blueberry flavor in there, but because it's getting older, it is starting to turn over a little bit to these leather and tobacco notes. There's a hickory smokiness here, which probably comes from barrel aging. And the tannins on this are relatively high, pretty sticky and dry, so we're going to need some protein, some food to go along with this. Spanish-style barbecue chicken wings are going to be perfect with a wine like this. Whole red peppers, sweet onion, and ingredients like cumin and paprika are going to be great with a smoky wine. As we pointed out earlier in the video, Rioja is best known for its red wines, and in particular made from the Tempranillo grape. And most Rioja wines are blends using a mix of other native grapes as well. Bodegas Franco Espanolas was founded in 1890 as a partnership between France and Spain. What's pretty remarkable is the length of time that Rioja reds are aged for. Gran Reserva reds like this one here have to be in oak cask for at least 2 years. So we can expect this to be a pretty bold and woody wine. This wine is 10 years old, so we're starting to get a lot of these complex, mature aromas in there. Things like vanilla, brown sugar, leather and tobacco, and something really interesting, dill. And I know that sounds crazy, but that dusty, dry sort of dill flavor is a result of aging the wine in American oak. Spain has long enjoyed a lucrative relationship with the United States, and over the years they found it was more cost-effective to use American oak rather than French. And for that reason, to this day, we still find flavors of dill in our red Rioja wine. We're suggesting that you pair this Rioja up with roasted poblano enchiladas. And the roasted green poblano peppers are the key here. I think they're going to really partner well with this earthy wine. So thanks for joining me to get this initial taste of northern Spain. In a country with such a rich history and such a diversity of grapes and wines, we've only scratched the surface. Hopefully this will inspire you to dig a little deeper on your own and also join me for future tastings. On behalf of Wine Still Sold Out, I'm Marc Supsic. Take care of yourselves, stay healthy, and drink well. Cheers.